You're done here, Nathan. The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut. Victoria Whitfield didn't even look up from her phone as she delivered my death sentence, her perfectly manicured fingers still scrolling through whatever was more important than ending my 22-year career. Behind her, the CEO, her uncle, sat like a carved statue, not saying a word. The conference room felt like a tribunal, and I was already convicted. I'm Nathan Cross, 50 years old, and until that Tuesday morning in October, I was the senior technical director at Pinnacle Systems. 22 years I'd given that company. Built their entire defense infrastructure from scratch. The AI-based threat detection algorithm running their $1.2 billion defense contract portfolio. That was mine. Every line of code, every neural network configuration, every cybersecurity protocol, all developed in my lab, tested in my systems, perfected through my sleepless nights. But here I was, getting terminated by a 28-year-old MBA with designer heels and an attitude problem. The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 months earlier, I'd been the golden boy. When the Pentagon awarded Pinnacle the largest defense AI contract in history, my algorithm beat out systems from Lockheed, Raytheon, and Boeing. 12 separate patents covering everything from drone swarm detection to cyber warfare prevention. The contract called my work revolutionary threat assessment technology that will define the next generation of national security infrastructure. Now, the same people who'd celebrated that victory were showing me the door. It started 8 weeks ago with the merger announcement. Pinnacle was acquiring a smaller firm, and rumors flew about optimization and redundancy elimination. That's when Tank Brooks, my old mentor and former CTO, pulled me aside at Murphy's Diner. "Nathan, you need to listen to me carefully," Tank said, his weathered hands wrapped around a coffee mug like he was still gripping helicopter controls from his Navy days. "I've seen this movie before. When companies merge, they look for excuses to clean house. Politics beats performance every time. Tank had retired as Chief Technology Officer 3 years back, disgusted with corporate games. 25 years in the Navy had taught him to plan for every contingency. You need insurance," he said, "the kind they can't take away from you." He was right to be paranoid. The next week, Victoria cornered me after our quarterly review meeting. Fresh out of Harvard Business School, she'd been installed as marketing director 6 months earlier. Nepotism at its finest. All smiles and professional charm, she needed a technical sponsor for her new commercial applications initiative. "I need someone with your credibility, Nathan," she said, tilting her head with practiced sincerity. "Someone the board respects. Your defense work could revolutionize our commercial sector." The request made my skin crawl. Defense contractors live and die by security clearances and compartmentalized information. Mixing classified AI algorithms with commercial applications wasn't just risky. It was potentially treasonous. "Can't do it, Victoria," I said firmly. "Federal regulations prohibit dual-use applications of classified defense technologies. Find someone from the commercial division." Her smile never wavered, but something cold flickered behind her eyes. "Are you sure you can't find a way? I was hoping we could collaborate more closely." "I'm sure. The legal liability alone would sink us. That was my mistake, saying no to the princess." Tank's insurance policy started taking shape the following week. Buried in my routine quarterly compliance reviews were documents I signed without much thought, standard IP protection paperwork, or so it seemed. A Delaware LLC called Cross Defense Solutions, performance-based patent assignments, technical specifications filed with the patent office under my name rather than Pinnacle's. "Trust me on this," Tank said when I questioned the paperwork. "If they ever try to screw you, you need leverage they don't see coming. This creates a legal framework where your individual contributions are protected." I should have paid more attention to the details. But I was focused on the work, always the work. My son Michael needed heart surgery that insurance would only partially cover. The specialist wanted $200,000 up front for the experimental procedure that could save his life. My daughter Sarah was grinding through her junior year at Harvard, working 2 campus jobs to help with the $54,000 annual tuition because her old man's salary could only stretch so far. 6 more months until my pension vested. 6 months until I could access my 401k without penalties. 6 months until financial security for my family. I just had to keep my head down and coast across the finish line. Victoria had other plans. The harassment started subtle. Comments during team meetings about evolving leadership styles and generational perspectives in technology. questions to my junior staff about whether they felt comfortable bringing innovative ideas to senior management, casual conversations about how the industry was changing and how important it was to have leaders who could adapt to new paradigms. She was surgical in her approach, never anything directly accusatory, never crossing obvious lines, just planting seeds of doubt about the old guard and letting them germinate in fertile corporate soil. 3 weeks into her campaign, HR called me for a routine discussion. The HR manager, a nervous guy named Phillips who couldn't hold eye contact, read from a script about management style concerns and workplace environment feedback. "We're not saying you did anything wrong, Nathan," he stammered. "We just want to ensure all employees feel supported and included in the collaborative process." 22 years in corporate America had taught me to recognize the smell of fresh manure. They were building a paper trail. The question was whether I could survive long enough for my pension to vest. The answer came during our department meeting 4 weeks after Victoria's initial request. She presented her commercial applications proposal to the entire technical team, painting it as revolutionary thinking that would transform Pinnacle's market position. Then she looked directly at me. "Of course, some of our more traditional team members have expressed reservations about innovation and cross-platform integration," she said with that same practiced smile. "Change can be challenging for people who've been approaching problems the same way for decades." The room went dead silent. Everyone understood the subtext. Nathan's a dinosaur. Nathan can't adapt. Nathan's blocking progress because he's too old and set in his ways to understand modern business. I kept my mouth shut. In 22 years, I'd learned that sometimes the best response is no response at all. Let the work speak for itself. Let results trump politics. But Victoria wasn't finished. She spent the next 2 weeks making her rounds through the department, having coffee with my team members, asking pointed questions about leadership effectiveness and innovation support, comments about generational differences in management approaches, suggestions that maybe it was time for fresh perspectives in senior technical roles. She was good, I'll give her that. Harvard had taught her well. Every conversation was carefully crafted, every comment precisely calibrated to avoid actionable harassment while systematically undermining my credibility. The morning they fired me, I walked into what I thought was a routine project status meeting. Instead, I found Victoria, her uncle, and a lawyer I'd never seen before sitting around the conference table like a hanging jury. The termination letter was already printed and waiting in a manila folder. "Due to concerns about cultural fit and evolving management requirements," the lawyer read in a monotone voice, "Pinnacle Systems is terminating your employment effective immediately. 22 years and they couldn't even give me the courtesy of a real explanation." I sat there listening to corporate doublespeak about cultural alignment and strategic restructuring, thinking about my pension that wouldn't vest for another 6 months, thinking about Michael's surgery scheduled for December, the experimental cardiac procedure that could give my 23-year-old son a normal life instead of constant monitoring and medication. Thinking about Sarah calling from Cambridge last week, exhausted from pulling double shifts at the campus bookstore while maintaining her pre-med grades. "Your access will be terminated within the hour," the lawyer continued. "Security will escort you to collect personal items. The severance package includes 3 months' salary and COBRA continuation, contingent on signing this non-disclosure agreement. 3 months. My mortgage payment alone was $3,200. Michael's medical bills were running $8,000 monthly just for the prep medications. Sarah's spring semester tuition was due in January. The math was brutal and simple. I was financially screwed. But something nagged at the back of my mind, something Tank had said 6 months ago when we were setting up what he called insurance. His exact words: "If they ever fire you without cause, Nathan, everything changes. The performance metrics you've exceeded, the patent assignments we filed, it all shifts ownership under Delaware corporate law." I stood up, shook hands with everyone like a professional, and walked out of Pinnacle Systems carrying nothing but a cardboard box and 22 years of suppressed anger. The security guard who escorted me to my car was Tommy Rodriguez, a good kid I'd helped get his cybersecurity certification. He couldn't look me in the eye. "Sorry, Mr. Cross," he mumbled as I loaded my personal effects. "This is messed up. Not your fault, Tommy. Take care of yourself." Tank was waiting at Murphy's Diner when I called him from the parking lot. Same corner booth we'd occupied every Thursday for the past 5 years. Same black coffee getting cold while he studied everyone who walked through the door. Old habits from 25 years of military intelligence work. They moved faster than I expected. he said as I slumped into the seat across from him. But we were ready. He slid a manila envelope across the Formica table. Inside were documents I'd signed during those quarterly compliance reviews, legal papers that had seemed routine at the time but now looked like ammunition. Cross Defense Solutions, LLC, Tank explained, pulling out the corporate filing. Established 6 months ago when merger rumors started flying. Every performance metric you've exceeded, every patent you've filed, every algorithm you've developed, it's all protected under specific ownership clauses. I stared at the Delaware Incorporation papers. You're telling me... I'm telling you that Victoria just made the biggest mistake of her privileged life. According to your original employment agreement from 1998, intellectual property belongs to Pinnacle only if the employee maintains continuous employment until project completion. Termination without cause triggers alternative ownership provisions we built into your performance-based patent assignments. Tank pulled out another folder, this one thick with technical specifications and patent filings. 12 patents covering every aspect of your threat detection algorithm, filed individually over the past 18 months under Cross Defense Solutions. The Pentagon contract specifies that ownership follows the patent holder, not the employer, in cases of wrongful termination. My head was spinning. How is this legal? Because I spent 3 months with the best intellectual property lawyers in Delaware making sure it was bulletproof. Your algorithm isn't just software, Nathan. It's a collection of discrete innovations, each protected separately. Facial recognition optimization, neural network threat assessment, real-time, behavioral analysis, quantum encryption protocols, 12 different patents that together create the system running Pinnacle's defense contracts. Tank leaned back, his weathered face showing the first smile I'd seen from him in months. The beauty is, they can't operate their Defense Department systems without licensing rights to your patents. As of this morning, they don't have those rights. You do. The implications hit me like a freight train. The Pentagon contracts, worth $1.2 billion over 5 years, all dependent on technology that Pinnacle no longer legally controls. They've got about 72 hours before the Defense Department starts asking uncomfortable questions about system continuity. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the missed calls that had started coming in 20 minutes after I left the building. Department, legal counsel, even Victoria's uncle himself. All very polite, all very urgent, all asking the same question. What would it take to resolve this misunderstanding? Don't answer yet, Tank advised. Let them sweat. Every hour they can't operate those systems costs them credibility with their biggest client. By tomorrow, panic will set in. By Thursday, they'll be begging. But I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about Michael's surgery, Sarah's education, and the financial security that had just evaporated along with my job. What are my options? Tank grinned like a chess master who'd just announced checkmate. Option 1, license the technology back to Pinnacle for enough money to solve all your problems. Option 2, take your patents to one of their competitors and watch Pinnacle lose the biggest defense contract in their history. There's a third option, I said, the pieces clicking together in my head. Do both. Tank's grin widened. Now you're thinking like a strategist instead of an employee. I spent the next 2 hours at Murphy's Diner reading through patent documents and corporate filings while Tank explained the legal framework he'd constructed. The man had been thorough. Every potential challenge anticipated, every loophole closed, every contingency planned. The key was timing, he explained. We needed to file patents before you were terminated, but after you demonstrated the technology's value. The Pentagon contract award gave us the proof of concept we needed. Your performance metrics over the past 18 months exceeded every benchmark Pinnacle established, which triggers the alternative ownership clauses. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text message from Victoria herself. Nathan, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we discuss this professionally? I showed Tank the message. He snorted. 24 hours ago, you were culturally incompatible. Now you're professional colleagues again. Funny how losing $1 billion contract changes perspectives. By 5 p.m., the calls had escalated. Pinnacle's general counsel left a voicemail requesting an urgent meeting to discuss mutual interests. The CEO's assistant called twice trying to schedule a conference call. Even Victoria's uncle tried reaching me directly, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. I let them all go to voicemail. Tank was right. Desperation was a more powerful negotiating tool than anger. That evening, I sat in my kitchen calculating the financial reality I was facing. Michael's surgery, $200,000. Sarah's remaining tuition, $108,000 for 2 years. My mortgage and living expenses without income, $72,000 per year. Cobra health insurance, $18,000 annually. The numbers were staggering, but now I had leverage, real leverage, the kind that could solve all those problems and more. My laptop chimed with an encrypted message from Tank. Blackstone Defense reached out through back channels. They want to meet tomorrow. Bring your patent portfolio. Blackstone Defense Contractors, Pinnacle's biggest competitor in the government space. They'd been trying to break into the Pentagon's AI initiatives for years, held back by inferior technology and Pinnacle's first-mover advantage. Now they had an opportunity to leapfrog their competition overnight. I opened a new email and typed carefully. Available for preliminary discussions regarding licensing opportunities. Please coordinate through legal counsel. I sent it to 3 companies, Blackstone, Raytheon, and Lockheed Martin. Let the bidding war begin. The responses came faster than I expected. Blackstone Defense called within 2 hours, requesting a meeting for Thursday morning. Raytheon's business development team reached out before midnight. Lockheed's government contracts division sent a formal inquiry asking for technical specifications and licensing parameters. Meanwhile, Pinnacle was hemorrhaging. Tank called Wednesday evening with updates from his contacts still inside the company. Their Pentagon project manager is asking pointed questions about system continuity, he reported. Defense Department wants written assurance that the AI threat detection capabilities won't be interrupted. Victoria's uncle can't provide that assurance because they don't control the underlying patents anymore. How long before the contract is in jeopardy? I asked. 72 hours, maybe less. The Pentagon doesn't mess around with national security systems. If Pinnacle can't guarantee operational continuity, defense will start looking at alternative contractors. Thursday morning, I walked into the Riverside Hotel conference room where my life had been turned upside down 3 days earlier. This time, I wasn't the one getting ambushed. Colonel Patricia Hayes, Blackstone's CEO, didn't waste time with pleasantries. Former Air Force, she ran her company like a military operation, direct, efficient, focused on results. We've reviewed your patent portfolio, Nathan. Impressive work. The neural network optimization alone is 2 years ahead of anything else in the field. The quantum encryption protocols are what really caught our attention, added Dr. James Murphy, their chief technology officer. We've been trying to crack that particular problem for 3 years. Your solution is elegant and practically bulletproof. Patricia leaned forward, her expression serious. Here's our situation. We've been locked out of Pentagon AI contracts because Pinnacle got there first with superior technology. Your technology. If we can license your patents, we can bid on the next generation of defense contracts with a significant competitive advantage. What kind of licensing arrangement are you proposing? I asked. Exclusive 5-year license for $850 million with option to extend. We also want to hire you as Chief Innovation Officer at $400,000 annually, plus equity participation. The numbers hit me like a physical blow. $850 million, more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. Michael's surgery would be a rounding error. Sarah could finish Harvard and medical school without working another campus job. I could buy my own defense contracting firm if I wanted, but I kept my expression neutral. I need to consider all options before making any commitments. Patricia nodded. Understood. But Nathan, I need you to know, this offer expires Friday at 5 p.m. We can't let this opportunity drag out indefinitely. Fair enough. My phone started buzzing the moment I left the hotel. Pinnacle's general counsel, requesting an urgent meeting to discuss mutually beneficial solutions. I let it go to voicemail and drove home to think. The math was compelling, but the timing felt rushed. Tank had taught me that desperation makes people careless, and Pinnacle was definitely desperate. I decided to let them make the first move. The call came at 7 p.m. Victoria's uncle himself, his voice strained with barely controlled panic. Nathan, I think we need to talk. Face to face, there may have been some misunderstandings about your termination. Misunderstandings? I kept my voice level, professional. I was told my employment was terminated due to cultural fit issues. Seemed pretty clear to me. Look, let's not get caught up in HR language. The important thing is finding a path forward that works for everyone. Can you meet with us tomorrow morning? Early? I can make time. Conference room B, 8 a.m. And Nathan, bring your legal representation. They were scared, really scared. The Pentagon contract that defined their entire business model was slipping away because they'd chosen politics over performance. Now they needed me more than I'd ever needed them. Friday morning, I walked into Pinnacle's headquarters for the first time since being escorted out by security. The conference room was packed. Victoria's uncle, the general counsel, 2 outside lawyers I didn't recognize, and Victoria herself, looking pale and diminished without her usual commanding presence. Tank accompanied me, along with the intellectual property attorney he'd retained, a sharp woman named Rebecca Walsh, who specialized in defense contractor law. She'd spent Thursday evening reviewing every document, every contract, clause, every patent filing to make sure our position was airtight. "Gentlemen, ladies," the CEO began, his voice carefully controlled. "We're here to discuss a resolution to this unfortunate situation. I think we can all agree that Nathan's departure was premature." Rebecca spoke before I could respond. My client was terminated without cause after exceeding every performance metric established in his employment agreement. The termination triggered specific intellectual property provisions that transfer ownership of his innovations to Cross Defense Solutions, LLC. "We're prepared to offer reinstatement," the general counsel said quickly. "Full back pay, promotion to vice president of technology, $50,000 salary increase." I almost laughed. 3 days ago I was culturally incompatible. Now they wanted to promote me. "I appreciate the offer, but I've moved on." Victoria finally spoke, her voice lacking its usual confidence. "Nathan, we made a mistake. I made a mistake. This whole situation got out of hand because of personality conflicts that should never have affected business decisions." "Personality conflicts?" Tank's voice cut like a blade. "You spent 8 weeks systematically undermining Nathan's credibility, questioning his competence, and building a case for his termination. That wasn't a personality conflict. That was a calculated campaign." The CEO's facade cracked slightly. "What do you want?" "Name your price." Rebecca slid a document across the table. "Licensing agreement. Cross Defense Solutions will provide Pinnacle with non-exclusive rights to continue operating existing Pentagon contracts. Cost, $500 million upfront, plus 15% royalty on all contract revenues." The silence was deafening. $500 million. 15% of every defense dollar Pinnacle earned going forward. It was financial survival, but barely. "That's completely unreasonable," one of the outside lawyers protested. "The technology was developed using company resources, company time, company equipment. Under an employment agreement that specifically provided for alternative ownership in cases of wrongful termination," Rebecca replied smoothly. "An agreement your client drafted and signed. We're simply enforcing the terms they established." The CEO's face had gone ashen. "We need time to consider." "You have until 5 p.m., I said, standing up. "After that, the licensing offer expires and you can explain to the Pentagon why your defense systems are offline." Walking out of that conference room felt like justice, but I wasn't celebrating yet. I still had one more meeting that afternoon. Blackstone's contract was sitting on my kitchen table when I got home. $850 million for exclusive licensing rights, plus the Chief Innovation Officer position at $400,000 annually. Everything I needed to secure my family's future and build something new. But exclusivity meant Pinnacle would lose everything. Their defense contracts, their Pentagon relationships, their entire government business would collapse overnight. Hundreds of employees would lose their jobs because of Victoria's ego and her uncle's poor judgment. I called Tank. "What's your read on the situation?" "Pinnacle's finished either way," he said bluntly. "Even if they pay your licensing fee, the financial hit will cripple them. The board won't tolerate losing $500 million because the CEO's niece couldn't handle being told no. And the employees? Not your responsibility, Nathan. You didn't create this situation. You just refused to be a victim of it." He was right, but it didn't make the decision easier. 22 years of my life had been invested in Pinnacle. Good people worked there. Engineers, technicians, support staff who had nothing to do with corporate politics, but business was business, and sometimes business was brutal. At 4:55 p.m., my phone rang. Victoria's uncle, his voice hollow with defeat. "We accept your licensing terms. We accept your licensing terms." The words came through my phone like a surrender flag. Victoria's uncle sounded like a man who'd aged 10 years in 3 days. $500 million up front, plus 15% royalty on all Pentagon contract revenues. It would keep Pinnacle alive, barely, while making me wealthy beyond anything I'd ever imagined. But I wasn't done yet. I appreciate your acceptance, I said calmly. However, I need to inform you that I've received a competing offer from Blackstone Defense for exclusive licensing rights, $850 million, which is significantly higher than your proposal. The silence stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, the CEO spoke, his voice barely a whisper. Exclusive rights would destroy us. That's not my problem. You terminated my employment without cause. I'm simply exploring my options in the marketplace. Nathan, please. We're talking about 800 jobs, families depending on this company. Families like mine, the one you didn't consider when you fired me 6 months before my pension vested? Another long pause. Then, what would it take for you to choose our licensing offer over Blackstone's exclusive deal? I'd been waiting for that question. $700 million upfront, 10% royalty, and one additional condition. Name it. Victoria Whitfield's immediate resignation. No severance, no transition period, no golden parachute. She's gone by Monday morning. The gasp was audible. Nathan, she's family. So was I, after 22 years. You made your choice about family loyalty. Now I'm making mine. I hung up and called Rebecca Walsh. Draw up 2 contracts. Pinnacle licensing for $700 million plus 10% royalty, contingent on Victoria's resignation. Blackstone exclusive for $850 million if Pinnacle doesn't accept by Monday at 9 a.m. Tank was waiting at Murphy's Diner when I arrived an hour later. How'd it go? Pinnacle has until Monday morning to decide if Victoria's job is worth $150 million. Tank's weathered face cracked into the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in months. You know what I like about this? It's not just about the money, it's about accountability. Actions have consequences, even for the boss's niece, especially for the boss's niece. Saturday and Sunday crawled by. I spent the time with Michael, driving him to his pre-surgery appointments and making sure he understood that money was no longer a concern. The relief in his eyes when I told him we could afford the experimental procedure was worth more than any licensing deal. "Dad, how did this happen so fast?" he asked as we sat in the cardiologist's waiting room. Sometimes life gives you a chance to fight back. The important thing is being ready when that chance comes. Sarah called from Harvard Sunday evening, exhausted from another double shift at the campus bookstore. "Dad, I heard you got laid off. Do I need to take a semester off to help with expenses?" "No, sweetheart, keep studying. Your tuition is covered through graduation, and you can quit that job anytime you want." "How is that possible? Your old man turned out to be more valuable than his former employers realized." Monday morning at 8:45 a.m., my phone rang. Victoria's uncle, his voice flat with resignation. "We accept your terms." Victoria submitted her resignation this morning. The board approved the licensing agreement. We'll have contracts ready for signature by noon. Excellent. I'll have my attorney review the documents. The signing took place at Rebecca Walsh's law office. Pinnacle's legal team looked like they were attending a funeral. Victoria wasn't present, probably for the best. Her uncle signed the contracts with hands that shook slightly, transferring $700 million to Cross Defense Solutions in exchange for non-exclusive licensing rights to technology I'd developed in their employ. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were paying me nearly $750 million for the privilege of continuing to use work they thought they owned outright. "The funds will transfer within 48 hours, Rebecca informed me as we finished the paperwork. Cross Defense Solutions is now one of the wealthiest defense technology companies in America." That afternoon, I called Patricia Hayes at Blackstone. "I appreciate your generous offer, but I've decided to license the technology non-exclusively. However, I'm still interested in the Chief Innovation Officer position. Even though you're licensing to our competitor, competition breeds innovation. Besides, having multiple companies working with my technology accelerates development. The Pentagon benefits, America's defense capabilities improve, and everyone makes money." Patricia laughed. "You sound like someone who's thought this through. When can you start?" "January 1st. I have some family obligations to handle first. Michael's surgery was scheduled for December 15th. The experimental procedure cost $200,000 paid in full before we walked through the hospital doors. The surgeon, Dr. Elizabeth Barnes, was optimistic about the outcomes. Your son should have normal cardiac function within 6 months. No more restrictions, no more medications. Sarah flew home from Harvard for Christmas break, finally able to focus on her studies instead of working to pay tuition. She'd already been accepted to Johns Hopkins Medical School for the following year. Dad, I still can't believe this happened. It's like winning the lottery. Better than the lottery. This was earned. Tank joined us for Christmas dinner, the first time he'd celebrated holidays with family in years. You know what I'm proudest of? He said as we sat around the table. You didn't just get revenge, you got justice. There's a difference. He was right. Victoria had learned that actions have consequences. Her uncle had learned that family loyalty doesn't excuse poor business decisions. The board had learned that competence matters more than connections. But the best part wasn't the money or the vindication. It was the phone call I received 2 weeks after the contracts were signed. Mr. Cross, this is Tommy Rodriguez from Pinnacle Security. I wanted to thank you. Thank me for what, Tommy? The company announced they're using part of the licensing fee to fund employee education programs. They're paying for my cybersecurity master's degree. Because of what happened with you, they realized they need to invest in people instead of just politics. That call meant more than any newspaper headline or business magazine article about the Nathan Cross story. Real people were benefiting from the choices I'd made. The money would secure my family's future, but knowing that other families would benefit too, that made everything worthwhile. I started at Blackstone on January 2nd, walking into a corner office with a view of the Pentagon. My first project was developing next-generation threat detection algorithms for the Navy's new submarine fleet. The work was challenging, the resources unlimited, the support absolute. Victoria, I heard through industry gossip, had taken a job with a small marketing firm in Denver. No more corner office, no more expense account, no more family connections to smooth her path. She was learning what the rest of us had always known, that in the real world, performance matters more than pedigree. Tank was right about one thing. I didn't just get revenge. I got something better. I got control of my own destiny. The algorithm that made me wealthy is still protecting American interests around the world. Every day my code analyzes threats, prevents attacks, and keeps our country safe. That's the real victory. Not the money, not the vindication, but knowing that my life's work continues to matter. Sometimes losing what you think defines you is the only way to discover what you're truly capable of. They underestimated me because I kept quiet and did my job. What they didn't understand is that competence doesn't need to announce itself. It just needs the right opportunity to prove its worth. Your value isn't determined by people who can't recognize it. You're not disposable just because someone younger thinks they can do your job. Experience matters, competence matters, and when the right moment comes, the work speaks louder than the politics. 22 years I thought loyalty meant keeping my head down and accepting whatever they handed me. Now I know better. Real loyalty is to the work itself and to the people who depend on you to do it right. Sometimes honoring that loyalty means walking away from people who don't deserve it.